Greetings. Welcome. It's the auspicious occasion of the final episode of me playing through Doom 2. This is The Living End, map 29 by John Romero, and I'm just sort of resetting it so the music starts again. It has this beginning that actually recalls a map by Tom Hall to me from Wolfenstein 3D, where they would do the intro area of these kind of small rooms that don't really give you a sense of what you're about to approach to kind of build up this sense of anticipation while you're in this first room. There's a lot of maps in episode 1 of Doom 1 that remind me of that also do that, and I think also the Abandoned Mines does it a little bit. Industrial Zone, a lot of ones where you have to take a lift down, so that's kind of a cliche of his, or it's something he goes to a lot. So this map is probably one of the most well-loved and best remembered maps from Doom 2. It's a style that I think kind of got introduced earlier with like the Abandoned Mines, but really fully is established here, and it's one that like so many mappers, including the Casali brothers who made the Plutonia experiment, the commercial Doom wand as part of Final Doom. So many mappers will be influenced by this style, will try their own imitations of it. Even John Romero kind of goes back to it in episode 4 of Doom 1. And which is made after this. I'm not sure if I'll do episode 4 videos, by the way. We'll have to see. But I actually think, and maybe it's just because I played episode 4 before this, but I actually think I prefer episode 4 map 6 to this one. I think it's a more interesting setting, whereas this is a little bit piecemeal, and it's a little bit puzzly, which is, when you're navigating on cliffs, especially in, I'm trying to give you a decently accurate depiction of how somebody who's playing this in the 90s is going to see it. And it's dark, and, navigating is not always easy, especially with a lower level of detail. Seeing where the platforms are when it's dark, etc. That's probably why he made the floor such a light texture here, although I do like that. Like white gravel floor. I don't know what it's like. I think it's called like lava rocks or something. Or SP white. I don't know. I forget the name of all the textures. But there's a lot of sort of perilous navigations around cliffs. There's this use of this kind of cavernous space, high ceilinged, where there's a sort of moat of lava around it, and if you fall into the pit, then you have to get back to wherever you need to go via several teleporters. It kind of seems like an obvious setting, but the fact that they don't open it up to the sky here, and the fact that it's dark, kind of really seems somehow appropriate for Doom, in the way that maybe even the city maps could never really fully establish a city sort of setting with the texture set and everything that they were working with. And with the monsters, it just never would have completely worked to make something that felt like a city. But this is something that seems like naturally fit to the engine, which is something a little more dark and spooky and mysterious, but it still has some of the more... this map is actually linear. It doesn't seem like it's linear, but it is actually very linear. Generally, I guess there's a few places where you can choose, but I think the progression overall is extremely linear, actually. And it's kind of the definition of a map that takes you on a little journey. There's a lot of different sort of sub-areas. They seem like they might not be required, but they are. I love this little ambush here when you pick up the soul sphere. These cacodemons come out. It's pretty freaky because you're on this very limited space. And I just decided to jump into the pit and come back so that I could fight these guys. I actually don't play this map as much. I'm not sure if I can describe why So this is a very, very well-loved map, and in a second I will read to you the description on Doom World, written by Linguisa, of course, from the April agitation thread, where everyone voted on their favorite maps. And the Living End is traditionally the map that wins these types of polls, and it was a very kind of shock, surprise decision when Episode 2, Map 2, Containment Area ended up winning. Of course, this poll was done after I did my original Doom commentary video, so I wasn't able to talk about that. But it actually won by 1 vote, which is pretty crazy, to be honest. But yeah, okay, so I think there's something about this map that just doesn't fully... I don't know, maybe it's because the tight catwalks, because the fact that it's relatively linear, or the setting doesn't vary quite as much as I'd like. There's something about it that I just don't like quite as much as some of the other maps in Doom 2. It's also possibly because it's just been copied. I don't know. I will say this is like one of the very last maps that I played. Because I played Doom 1 and then Doom 2 and obviously got to the end of Doom 2. So I don't have quite the level of nostalgia for it that some other people might. But by any standards, it's a well put together map. I mean, it's something where you're sort of unlocking various pieces. Now it appears, again, here's a situation, you don't know exactly where to go. It seems like you might need to go there. There's actually no secrets in this map, which I forgot about. I was so disappointed that I didn't have a secret. The path branches in 3 places here, but it doesn't matter where you go. Or I mean, it matters where you go because there's only one place you can go, which is here right now. And this seems like it's not required, but it's actually required. So this is kind of... This map... It feels like it's giving you this sort of aimless freedom and then routing you back towards the main path. I was freaked out for a second that I needed to make that lip. Which shows how much I played this map. I don't play this one as much. And it will do this again at a later point, which is the room that I always remember from this map for some reason, which is this teleport this place where you get ambushed by a teleporter and sort of come back into, and then you have you get ambushed once you step into a teleporter very suddenly, and then you have this 3-path choice here. I almost died here, which is pretty embarrassing. From pistol start, I imagine this is harder, but this is one of those maps that if you take it one step at a time, you can do it. It's just that the perilous cliffs and stuff, I do see in terms of difficulty, this really is the last map, because you're not only handling high-level enemies, you're handling them in very precarious locations. But by the standards of modern maps, this doesn't have really slaughter tendencies. Like the Spirit World and even Suburbs did more so than this map. So it's not necessarily like modern feeling in that way, although a lot of people will take this setting. I think what has inspired people is the setting of this map. And I like this room because it revisits this like wood paneling area. It's very reminiscent of a room in the Industrial Zone, map 15 by John Romero. Again, it feels like that switch there might be a secret, but it's actually just going to open up to that in a second. There's only 1 archvile in this map too, which is kind of strange. I didn't even realize that. By the standards of like modern Doom maps, I expect like things to become a little more unhinged at this point in terms of combat, but this is actually relatively restrained map outside of the ending, but we'll get to that. So yeah, he comes back to this wood setting. I kind of like it. There's some areas of episode 2, I think, and episode 3 that I always liked this wood texture because it always comes up on you unexpectedly, and I don't think there's very many maps that are actually set in a setting that's built around it, so it's always kind of like side areas, it feels like. Okay, let's read the description on Doom World. If we're looking to use words like cinematic or spectacle to describe key moments of the game, and we're willing to accept that there aren't that many in Doom 2 given its broader focus on gameplay, it's hard to go past Romero's Doom 2 magnum opus. With a relative handful of line defs and liberal scattering of torches, he has managed to forge a level so compelling and fraught with anticipation that it almost seems like a shame that we have to wait through 28 maps to get to it. The deliberate combination of platforming, puzzle solving, and monster pressuring the player from a distant vantage points was immediately successful outside of the level it was formally introduced in, so much that the Casali brothers who made Plutonia saw fit. Actually, one of them works for Valve, I think, still, or was a designer on Half-Life 1 and 2, Dario Casali, as far as I remember. They saw fit to repeat the concept twice for their Plutonia experiment. They even went so far as to rip the texture selection right off the turf, although that's not entirely out of character for them. As the penultimate level of the game, the Living End satisfies both artistically and in its ability to ready the player for the final showdown. It's also a pretty good last hurrah for the Doom engine. It's not really a last hurrah because, you know, they would make episode 4. And again, I do still feel like episode 4, map 2, and map 6 are more difficult than this, which is why I kind of was surprised by it. And I also like the setting a little better in episode 4, map 6 in particular. But yeah, it has an impressive verticality and level of detail. This map is much bigger than episode 4, map 6, or map 2, so it has that going for it. Here's the teleporter ambush. I think this ambush is great. So this branching path, again, this room is, I guess I call it the squid room or something. It looks like a weird little squid on the auto map. This is the one room that I remember particularly well from this this level. And I think that there's a map in Sigil. I actually played through Sigil recently on stream, and I might be doing more streams, I don't know, at some point in the future, because I moved and, you know, I have a desk and things, so I have a decent enough setup to do that. But there's a level in Sigil, probably my favorite level. I think it's map 4, episode 5, map 4, that has a beginning that has a branching 3 paths, and it uses that green marble texture. So it's clearly an artistic territory that John Romero likes to come back to. Also, the use of the torches is good. I mean, it's relatively bare bones, but the whole setting of this map is like this map is very economical. It's not necessarily hyper detailed, but the details, like the torch here, are effective. And given that the setting is kind of meant to be a cavern, it works very well. There's just a higher density of ideas and stuff in this map, I think. So let's finish what Linguisa is saying here. Perhaps the only letdown in the map is the cyber demon at the very end, which does a supremely ineffectual job of actually guarding the level exit. Oh well, you can't have everything, it seems. Yeah, I think Romero was going more for surprise than for like an actual combat scenario. But if you compare it to, you know, again, episode 4, map 2, episode 4, map 6, where it's not as easy to avoid the cyber demons at the end, then it feels it doesn't quite have the same. And also by the standards of like modern Doom mapping, it feels like kind of a cop-out or whatever. I don't know. I think it's fine. I think the exit area could have been more expanded, but I think that they were probably working on a limited amount of time, and this map already has sort of a higher density of things going on than perhaps other maps. So this map just feels very economical, I guess you could say. I always remember it as being bigger than it is because it has the feeling of being open-ended even when it's not. And I really genuinely thought there were secrets. There actually is a secret. See, I'm already at the end of the map here. So there actually is a secret that's not counted as a secret to pick up a bunch of plasma ammo, and I forgot how to do that. But it's listed on like the Doom wiki, etc. But it's where those chain gunners are at the beginning. I'll probably run back to go try and find it, but I won't be able to find it. Another interesting thing about this final area, so you climb up the stairs, which is interesting. So he's like really using the perilous steps thing very well. And so there's these guys on the side which can create a mess. But the cyber demon doesn't spawn in until you get to the very top, so you don't hear it. So I think he's going for that surprise of like, you don't actually really fully experience the cyber demon until you step up there. Because otherwise it would be shooting at you the whole map and you'd be seeing it the whole map. And you know, by the standards of a modern Doom map, maybe that's fine, but by the standards of, you know, an original Doom map, I don't think that they were prepared to just have a cyber demon shooting at you from across the level a bunch. Although, you know, strangely there are cyber demons that were added in co-op play, probably because they'd assume, you know, you'd have more ammo and resources to fight them. So in the industrial zone and in the Citadel, maybe others too. I don't know. Those are the two that I remember. So yeah, I feel like this uses its space very well, but it's interesting to me how this was generally accepted by a lot of people for a very long time as like the best map in Doom, either Doom, like by id Software, and it was beaten recently by Episode 2 Map 2. So I'm more partial to Episode 2 Map 2 because it's kind of more strange. I think the layout is more interesting. Whereas I think this is kind of like classically good, I guess, by standards of a certain game design. It's very like it follows one step to the next in a way that is like it is building up a certain challenge. It is building up a sort of anticipation. It's like the last map before the very end, you know. And Doom 2 really is the first Doom that a lot of people played. Unlike me, you know, I bought the Ultimate Doom before I played Doom 2, but Doom 2 was the first like big box PC release. So a lot of people just played Doom Episode 1 and then played, you know, the shareware and then played Doom 2. You can see it looks kind of like a squid on the map, this room. But I don't know. I think it's like there's something interesting there in the dynamics of the community changing slightly, and the appreciation of what is considered good mapping, even if it's only slightly. It would be unquestionably, like, this would be unquestionably considered the best map in Doom prior to a certain point, and now it has a challenge. I think there is something kind of predictable and easily clonable about some of Romero's designs that his maps don't necessarily fall into, but when they're cloned so many times, they kind of lose some of their magic or novelty. You can see how easy it is to avoid that cyber demon at the end. Ignore that window pop up. Yeah, I was very disappointed that I had no secrets, and then I remembered that there were no secrets in the map when I looked it up later, because I suspected there might not be. Okay, so here's the famous last battle, the Icon of Sin. So if you've ever played Doom, obviously you probably remember this. The thing that you actually shoot at is the disembodied head of John Romero. If you clip into the wall, you can see it. I'm sorry that I didn't clip in. I didn't even think about it. There's this giant goat head type thing, which is very memorable. Maybe based off of the sort of satanic symbol that's on the walls here. And then the green slime, you know, fall texture used on the sides. Very simple map. This is by Sandy Peterson. It seems like they always had him do sort of the dirty work since he was the lead designer. So he had to do these transitional maps. Yeah, basically all you do is you go up to the top here. This thing shoots at these little spawners that spawn in random monsters, so they can be high or low level monsters. I'm sure that there's complicated math that goes into what actually spawns, because everything around enemies and weapons in this game involves like random rolls and lots of complicated math, especially if you ever try and look up, you know, how the BFG works. So all you have to do is, once this thing goes fully up, once this lift goes fully up, you go to the top, or almost to the top. Of course, I had a lost soul that got in my way. So you can see how wrong things can go, especially if you don't get there quickly enough. And I'm really bad at fighting Icon of Sins. But this is generally the boss format that is used for any kind of like Doom 2 Megawad at the end. And so this is the kind of map cliche that everyone's like, oh, you have to have an Icon of Sin at the end. I have no idea why this specific section went down lower than it did before, by the way. That's very strange to me. So I think you can shoot this Icon of Sin with other weapons, but the rocket is the best because of the amount of splash damage. So I would imagine that maybe the trick to figure out that the rocket is what it wants you to use is part of perhaps maybe the challenge of this map when you play it the first time. Although there's like a pack of rockets right there, so that gives you a clue. That's a nice little indicator that that's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, here's what you do. You want to shoot the rockets as you go up, and you can hit it again on the way down, although it's not always easy. I managed to do it the second time. But that's basically all you want to do, and the longer that you sit here and wait, the more enemies will spawn in, and the harder it will get, basically. So you want to kill this guy as soon as possible, or whatever it is. So yes, the thing that I'm hitting in there, you can hear it blowing up now. The thing that I'm hitting in there is the disembodied head of John Romero on a stick, and the voice in there says, if you want to win the game, then you have to defeat me, John Romero, backwards. I think that's the line. But yes, that's the Icon of Sin, a format that everyone sort of copies, and it's sort of like dead simple map 7, where it's something that people try and put their own spin on, but can get tiresome if you played so many Doom WADs. You've probably done so many Icon of Sin fights, and I never particularly enjoy it because it always is just like a matter of getting to shoot the thing, you know, as quickly as you can so that tons of monsters don't spawn in. Okay. The horrendous visage of the biggest demon you've ever seen crumbles before you, which is the Icon of Sin. After you pump your rockets into his exposed brain, the monster shrivels up and dies, its thrashing limbs devastating untold miles of hell's surface. Apparently it has limbs. You've done it. The invasion is over. Earth is saved. Hell is a wreck. You wonder where bad folks will go when they die. Now, wiping the sweat from your forehead, you begin the long trek back home. Rebuilding Earth ought to be a lot more fun than ruining it was. I don't know about that. I don't think rebuilding would be very fun at all. Probably better than lots of people dying. So now we have this little enemy. It's showing off the enemies, all their animations. When you hit the space bar, it will kill them. So the game is over at this point. You can exit, but it'll just show you that you can see in this game it calls the chain gunner a heavy weapons dude, but everyone refers to him as chain gunner. Demons are also generally called pinkies a lot of the time, instead of just demons. But yeah, again, this is a format that gets copied by a lot of Doom WADs, so I'm kind of used to seeing this over and over again whenever you beat a Doom WAD. This is just the default thing that happens. But you can see Hell Knight is a new enemy they added from Doom 2, of course. We have our Baron from Hell friend who ambushed us in earlier in the Living End. Arachnotrons, who I love but are terrifying with how fast they fire. Pain Elementals, the worst enemy. Revenants, everyone's favorite. So annoying. Macubus, I kind of love them just because they're, I don't know, there's something about them I like. And of course, our favorite, Archvile, the last thing that you want to see ever, other than maybe a Spider Mastermind or a Cyber Demon. There's our Spider Mastermind friend, kind of like wonky movement. And of course, the Cyber Demon, who we just ran past. And yes, of all things, our hero is the most important one. And we haven't, there's no voodoo dolls or anything in Doom 2, but thank you so much for watching these videos. I'll probably try and resurrect my Doom mixtape videos maybe, or something else. I don't know if we'll do episode 4, we'll see, but thank you so much again, and I'll see you when I see you.